Welcome to today's presentation about Montana Harvest of the Month. This is in particular training for the new business and community pilot sites. My name is Demetrius Bassis. I'm a local food program specialist at the National Center for Appropriate Technology, more commonly known as NCAT. NCAT's a nationwide nonprofit with 6 regional headquarters across the country. We are headquartered out of Butte, Montana, and work on issues pertaining to sustainable agriculture and renewable energy. I also work with the Farm to Cafeteria Network, which is a program of NCAT, and it's a group of Montana food producers, processors, food service professionals, and community members that collaborate and share best practices and resources about farm to cafeteria and farm to table programs across the state. As you're listening to today's webinar, feel free to ask questions. I'll pause at the end of each section and allow time for this. Additionally, please keep your phone muted unless you're asking a question, just to cut down on background noise. So today we'll run through an overview of the Harvest of the Month program. I'll pull out of the PowerPoint presentation and do a run through of the online web portal, and then we'll talk a little bit about purchasing strategies, and then there'll be some time for Q&A. If there are any unanswered questions at the end. Montana Harvest of the Month program showcases Montana grown foods in Montana communities with 2 main goals of exposing people to new foods, healthy foods, and supporting Montana's farmers and ranchers. By showcasing a different food each month, it gives an easy to use and attractive framework to start or grow farm to table programs, and provides access to ideas, resources, materials, promotional content. It's a great way to provide nutrition education, to promote healthy food, and also to grow a team for supporting wellness initiatives in your community or in your organization. It is a collaborative statewide program, and we've got tons of partners and funders that have helped on this project over the past 3 years. Montana Harvest of the Month was developed as a farm to school program in K through 12 schools. Currently there are over 130 schools that are registered for the program, and sites can register at no charge in any time of the school year. This is a map from one of the Farm to Cafeteria websites that shows all of the Harvest of the Month sites around the state, and as you can see, it's pretty widespread. We're currently in the 2nd launch year of the program, and piloting in early care and education sites. We have 8 preschools, 4 healthcare institutions, and now 4 grocery stores that are going to be participating in a pilot. I mentioned that this started out as a farm to school program. Just a quick overview. Farm to school is an umbrella term that describes activities that promote school gardens, local food procurement, and health and nutrition education. It enriches connection that communities and schools have with their fresh, healthy food, the local food, and the producers, and hopes to change food purchasing practices and education practices. So this Harvest of the Month program began with farm to school, and is currently, NCAT's been trying to build on the successes and lessons learned from the school-based program to extend it to other food service environments. This is from the USDA Farm to School census that was taken a few years ago. This is pre-Harvest of the Month implementation. Since then, we have seen through Harvest of the Month that reach of students has gone up to 27,000 students, and $5 million invested in local food, aided by programs like Montana Harvest of the Month. So the Harvest of the Month program has been a great way to grow collaboration in the communities, and we have been piloting in 3 communities across the state with the expansion of Harvest of the Month, and that's Livingston, Missoula, and Kalispell. And I wanted to share some success stories from those. In Kalispell, the Sweet Pea Outdoor School is a outdoor-based preschool, and their school center is located on the prairie on the outskirts of Kalispell, and their Harvest of the Month produce either comes out of their own garden and their apple trees, or has been donated from families in the community. Rochelle Laster, their director, said that one of their goals this upcoming year is to actually plant and harvest 90% of the Harvest of the Month items out of their own garden. And she said that since incorporating Harvest of the Month into their school, they've been able to add another element to their educational model that creates awareness and appreciation for local food, cooking, eating healthily, and community. Also in Kalispell, there are a couple of K-12 schools, as well as Kalispell Regional Medical Center, that are participating in Harvest of the Month. And Seth Bostic, the executive chef there, shared that they had a child come in the other day to meet their mom for lunch at the hospital, and the kid picked up the Harvest of the Month table tent that's in their cafeteria, and the mom and son started talking about Harvest of the Month and how both the school and the hospital were integrating it. And it was this launching point for a conversation around fresh, seasonally available Montana-grown food. In Livingston, Livingston Healthcare, the Montessori Island School, the Chickadee School, and their K-12 school are also a part of Harvest of the Month, and they've shown great success. The hospital has the table tents that feature nutrition information and fun facts, and then staff and patients get to enjoy the harvest items multiple times a month. Jesse Wilcox, their food and nutrition services manager, really loved Kale Month. They were able to buy kale from the farm to school program from Livingston School, from their greenhouses, and they served it in a huge variety of ways. She said her favorite part was seeing kale pop up in so many places around the town, and in the home place, and in the cafe at the hospital, in their management huddles, in the school, and in their team meetings. And being able to purchase from the school really completed that circle. We've also been doing community meetings with these community participants to discuss ways that we can incorporate Harvest of the Month into grocery stores and restaurants and food pantries. And a lot of the folks that are joining this pilot are a product of those meetings, and were identified by members of the community as potentially interested in Harvest of the Month. So we're excited to be able to grow this into a new food service environment. So why, as I said, it grows collaborations within the schools, the after-school programs, healthcare institutions, grocery stores now, and connections with community organizations and individuals. And it increases the opportunities for local producers and businesses, thereby increasing the economic strength of the communities. And perhaps more important, it promotes health and encourages adventurous eaters. It educates the public on the variety of seasonally available produce that we can get here in Montana. So each month we feature a different Montana grown or raised food, and this calendar makes it easier to find those local foods and plan ahead, secure future orders, especially with those winter storage crops like carrots and beets. And in the next year, we're actually going to be adding new items and further adapting this calendar to suit the needs. Over the next couple of years, we'll be adding dairy, cherries, and beans to the calendar. And none of the materials actually have any of the months printed on them, so you're free to arrange this calendar to suit your needs. this is just a recommendation based on what we've found is most available. So our team at NCAT is here to help, and we will provide mailed packets and printed materials, electronic versions of all the materials which we'll step through. There are guides for local food purchasing, and we conduct trainings like this on occasion as well, and I'm always here to answer questions. Feel free to reach out. With the new grocery store sites and the food pantries, Helena Food Share and Livingston Food Resource Center, I am not sure what printed materials would be most valuable, and I don't want to inundate you with a bunch of stuff that you're not going to use. So it would be really helpful to hear back from participating sites about what you would like. Hopefully following this webinar you can have an idea of what resources are available, and then I can create packets for the individual sites. The intention is that in the next year, using feedback from this pilot, we're able to create additional materials that are better suited to these environments. One thing so we do provide this framework. There's a plethora of materials, but we don't provide the food that you need, and individual sites have to locate the vendors or the gardens that work for them. We also don't specify who you need to order from. Sites do that. Our team's happy to connect Harvest of the Month sites with vendors and producers, but we're not pushing any particular vendors or producers through this program. And we also don't provide a person to do any educational activities, as we hope that becomes a part of your program. So as a site, we have 4 main responsibilities. First, forming a team, which many of you have already done. Secondly, each site has to showcase that Harvest of the Month item at least once a month. Sometimes in the schools it's just a snack with a class. We're hoping that in grocery stores this will be included in your retail offerings if you have any prepared meals or a la carte options. And then using the provided material, displaying them in a visible location. This is kind of above all else promotional content. It draws attention to the local food that you may already be procuring and selling or preparing, and doesn't work unless the materials get out there. And as I said, we are happy to develop additional materials and have funding for the creation of new materials that suit your environment best. And then lastly, you agree to participate in evaluation. This is a grant-funded program, and as such, we've got to collect data to be able to continue to fund it, to be able to continue to develop it. While at some point in the future, I hope that Montana Harvest of the Month can grow wings and exist on its own and be locally adapted, that time has not yet come. Here's an example of, this is from one of the schools, a bulletin board where they highlight Harvest of the Month materials. That education and outreach piece can be done through newsletters, through handouts. We're currently developing recipe cards, that kind of thing, and I'll go into those materials a little bit later. But sites are getting creative with the way that these materials are displayed. The Good Food Store has actually taken the Harvest of the Month logo and printed it on a banner that was highlighting beets this past month, and had a particular beet recipe that they slapped Harvest of the Month on, and that's awesome. We love that. Use it however it works best. So I mentioned evaluation. All the participating sites have 3 required evaluation components. There's a beginning of the year survey that should be completed by the team lead before the program's implemented. I know that some folks are behind on this. That's a-okay. This basically gives us a baseline to compare to, and the end of the year survey is essentially, or the end of the pilot survey is essentially the same as the beginning of the year survey, and gives us a comparison over time. And then each month, participating sites should submit a monthly survey, and it's basically tracking purchases and interactions, if you did any activities, that type of thing. The monthly survey shouldn't take any more than 10 minutes to complete, while the beginning and end of year survey are a little bit more involved and will require collecting information from multiple stakeholders at your organization. So the materials and resources. Well, at this point, I am going to switch screens here and go to the online portal. This I might be jumping the gun on my presentation, actually. So I'm going to show you all that online portal right now. Does anyone have any questions from that first quick overview? Remember to unmute yourself if you're going to ask a question.
Hi, this is Jim from Chicago.
Hey.
You said you were talking about adding a couple more items to the calendar.
Uh-huh.
Later in the line. Are you just thinking expanding by the months, or just kind of dropping off ones that maybe aren't as flexible, or what are you thinking? And can you take suggestions, or can we do our own? Just trying to think of different stuff we might be able to grow here at Chico for us.
Yeah, I absolutely happy to take suggestions. There's a state level planning team for Harvest of the Month, and those additional groups are really trying to kind of flesh out all of the food groups is where we're trying to get to at this point with adding dairy. But other states that have Harvest of the Month programs will, they might have 20 different items, and then they create kind of a rotational calendar so that it's fresh and different each year. And so we're building towards that. But all the materials will still be available all the time for however you want to implement it, and in whatever order you want to use. And yeah, happy to take suggestions for additional food.
Yeah, this is Scott from California Regional. Just to kind of piggyback on what was being said there, with multiple offerings out there in different seasons and times, let's say for beef being offered, or carrots, sometimes winter months and whatnot. Oftentimes they're more popular as fall time vegetables. So having the opportunity to be able to ebb and flow and change which months are offered at what time, or just take that particular material and remove the month offering, and we, after the pilot is done, and we can sort of write the next year's ourselves as to what works for us, and then be able to then either provide that document back to MCAT or whatever organization. Is that something that we're kind of edging towards, and being able to also add on different ingredients?
I would say that if you design your own calendar, then it's more up to you to communicate that. I guess we're edging more towards having the food buyers work with the producers or with the vendors that they're going to be purchasing from. So, a large distributor like Quality Foods Distributing, they coordinate with the producers here in Montana in advance of the season to say, this is what we forecast we'll need. And being able to forecast your purchasing directly to a vendor is going to be better than trying to relay it through me. But I guess NCAT's happy to do that. Does that answer your question, Seth? Am I getting at the point?
The idea of the seasonal availability and forecasting through the vendors is something that, as a chef, I've been doing about most of my career.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of understanding what comes out and when it's going to be available and when it's freshest might not necessarily be congruent with the pilot program we've had here. So at the end of this pilot program, would it behoove us to all kind of get our collective minds together, chefs and directors alike, and discuss which ones are misplaced?
Yes.
Super. That is all I want to do. I want to make it so it's a system that is easily replicated.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing is we need to make it easy and we need to make it something that isn't going to be arduous or a task that we can't otherwise hand to somebody with, a little education and background and having to train them for days or weeks or whatever it might take. And in doing so, just by changing the harvest calendar slightly, might make that a little bit more congruent.
Yeah, and we're as we basically increase the demand for these products, we have to make sure that production is able to meet that. And that'll take some tweaking of the calendar, I am sure. It hasn't been a problem as of now, because folks have known, the producers have known about this calendar in advance of the year and are able to grow to it and have expectations that in January there's going to be a demand for carrots, and in February there's going to be a demand for beets. So the only month that I have seen some difficulty in or heard from pilot sites was winter squash in December. Was a little bit tough to get a hold of for some folks. But yeah, happy to hear at the close of the pilot, especially I think the easiest way to do that is on that end of year survey. We ask about changing materials and ask for additional comments, and that would be a good place to plug that in. If not, just having a personal conversation. I'm happy to do that too.
No, during the review process would be fantastic, and I will be certain to include that then, and if it needs that further discussion, then awesome.
Rock on. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to step through the portal. The Harvest of the Month web portal has an individual link that can't be navigated to from the Montana Farm to School site or from the regular Harvest of the Month site, and that's been shared with all of you all in an email. As you can see, it's laid out with these different pilot environments, or these different Harvest of the Month food service environments as tabs. And I'm going to go into business and community because this is the newest edition. Currently, as this is a pilot, some of the business and community portal links actually link to the healthcare portal. We will build more appropriate pages as we progress through the pilot and understand what materials are most likely or are best suited for this environment, and as we develop new materials. Hopefully that makes sense. And if you see in the breadcrumbs at the top of the page that it says healthcare portal, don't worry, you're in the right place. The portal is our way of organizing digital copies of all of the print materials that exist, as well as additional guides and links to other resources like this training, which will be uploaded under the training tab. So if you click on training, it'll take you down. There's an intro video, there's a producer's video, and then soon this webinar will also appear under there. While we're down here, we've got evaluation pages. The beginning of the year pilot survey, as I mentioned, was already due, but if If that has not been completed already, please log on and get her in. It is a web-based survey using Qualtrics. It's pretty simple to complete, but if you we also provide a printable version for let's see if I've got it up here somewhere. We have a printable version that you can take and complete as a team and then return to the computer and submit that online. And you can see that there. Monthly reporting is due the 5th of the month every month. That would mean by the 5th of March we would hope to have a monthly report on beet month, which was February. Again, this is part of tracking changes over time and helps us add to the continuing grant applications which fund the development of this program. Any pertinent announcements will show up in the announcements block. Right now it's just talking about filling out the beginning of the year survey. If there's upcoming trainings, that will be updated into this announcements block as well. For getting started, I'm going to go to guides and other resources. Here you will see the purchasing local food guide that that shows here. Actually, let me share. Just trying to get it to show my cursor. Can anybody see my cursor on their screen?
Yes, original.
Okay, good deal. So the purchasing local food guide has been phased out and included in the farm to cafeteria manual. We just completed an update of this manual. The link on the website has not been changed. The farm to cafeteria manual is kind of a how-to guide for it's a catch-all. It's got tabs for producers, it has tabs for food service folks, and then community leaders. And that will be updated by the end of March for sure. This Find Local Producers and Food Businesses is a link to NCAT's Farm to Institution database. Let's see. The Farm to Institution database is where you first, at the beginning of this webinar, saw the list of all of the schools that were involved in Harvest of the Month. This is a similar map that shows the producers that are interested in selling locally. This is also sortable by particular products, or if you're looking for a distributor, you can sort it by distributor as well. Clicking on an individual will tell you a little bit about their farming practices, what they use for distribution, and give contact information as well. Under promoting your program, there's a participation letter that is basically meant for community members to go out to the public and say, hey, we're doing this thing. Come check it out. Come see what this month's harvest is. It is meant to be customizable. It's a Word document. If you have an announcement that goes out to your community, feel free to use this as is or adapt it to suit your particular organization. Additionally, if you are serving food, there are menu templates for each month. This is just a sample one that we plugged into the Promote Your Program. Share Your Story takes you to a web form where you can upload images and stories about successes with Harvest of the Month in your environment. And then here are copies of a red and a black Harvest of the Month logo. The logos are also colored for each month, and those can be found in the monthly materials section. But first, getting started is well, the best place to get started with the program. I would suggest that everyone that is using Harvest of the Month download and print a copy of the checklist. This getting started guide will step you through the important aspects of making sure that Harvest of the Month is well integrated into your environment, and allows a good starting point for a conversation with your team. And then the second page of it is actually a monthly checklist, just to give you the reminders about which materials should go where. In the grocery stores, we're seeing that a lot of, well, in a lot of these business and community pilot sites, you've got a marketing person, and if they have access to these materials every month, it takes a little bit of training to get people going to the same place each month for a resource, but it quickly becomes a routine for putting together the monthly newsletter and adding the blurb in there about Harvest of the Month, or changing signage and changing the Harvest of the Month signage. If you use social media, hashtag MT Harvest of the Month, you will find is populated with a number of posts each month, and it's kind of a fun way to stay in the loop about what other places are doing around the state. And then there's a link to the monthly reporting survey on here as well. If you want to explain to someone else what Harvest of the Month is, this Harvest of the Month 101 Getting Started is a great way to do that. Downloading a copy of this, posting it up on the staff bulletin board is a great way to clue people into what this new program is that you're participating in. And I hope that that none of you try to shoulder this alone. It is it's a program that's made easier by teamwork and sharing the responsibilities in an organization, and this is a great way to make sure that everybody's on the same page with what the program is. Also, sharing this video as a training can be really beneficial too. You'll see that there are additional Harvest of the Month 101s that service different audiences. So I'm going to run through monthly materials. This month, upcoming month, is March Beef Month. If you click on the image or the banner below it, that will take you to the beef page. Again, I mentioned that we linked to the healthcare resources here because we decided that we probably would be able to use the same print materials. And until we've got a better idea of what materials will be best suited for food businesses and community organizations, we're not going to create whole new pages. So that's a big point of this pilot, and it's 5 months, it's pretty quick, but we're hoping to gather enough feedback about what new materials need to be created and how we should structure these pages to be of best use. So these are all links to downloads. If you have a printer in-house and can print 11 by 17, it's really easy to print additional posters. I have 18 by 24 inch posters that I can mail out to pilot sites as well. And if you need, I've got one set for each pilot site of the 18 by 24 inch. If you need additional ones, MSU has them for purchase available. Also, the table tents, one of those open. Table tents can be printed on an 11 by 17 cardstock or regular paper. There's a spot for placing a slice, and you can fold these things up and they'll stand on their own. We are out of the high gloss printed copies, so if you would like to use table tents in your organization, I can print them for you and mail them out, but it'll just be regular cardstock paper, so not super durable. These table tents are a great way to reach the public in kind of a flashy spot to highlight on a table if you have a cafeteria area. The Cafeteria Bites is provides standardized recipes. This is mainly suited for institutional kitchens. It also gives nutritional breakdowns. Harvest at Home is I will show Cafeteria Bites in a standardized recipe with that nutrition analysis at the bottom. The Harvest at Home is really what's meant to go out to the consumer, and this is a one-page front and back that can be printed that gives a recipe, talks about how to shop for the harvest item, it talks about how to prepare and how to store it. Some of them actually have like gardening ideas, and then there's fun facts. The promotional content and social media posts gives the promotional content and social media posts gives some pre-generated language that you can use and adapt for newsletters, social media posts, email blasts if you do that. And there are also versions of, that's not showing up very well, but versions of the imagery that are on here as well. There are menu templates, serving line signs. Serving line signs are very basic. Menu templates were initially developed for the school food service environment. Here's where you can find the Harvest of the Month logo that is colored to match the materials, as well as the illustration, the beef illustration that is on the poster. Those two things, none of this is copyrighted. It is all for you to use if you want to develop your own materials or put it on your existing materials. Feel free to do that. I would love to gather information about how these things are being used, because if we can create something that takes the time out of your all's day and can make it available to other organizations in the state, we would love to do that. Alright, I think I can go back to, see, is there anything else on the portal that I'm missing? Are there any questions about this website and how to use it, or critiques? It's meant to be kind of the one-stop shop, and we hope that it's well organized and easy to work with. If there's anything about it that presents a problem or could be better organized or broken links, feel free to reach out, let me know. Here's a list of just a few of the like the larger distributors and food processors that exist within the state. You may be familiar with some of these. As the demand for Montana-grown foods has grown, we have seen also the growth of local food processors, and so it's really neat to see folks that can take the seasonally available produce, process it, freeze it, can it, what have you, and make it available year-round. And there are a number of products that are available as such. Seth actually has a really good kind of case study at Kalispell Regional Medical Center about tomatoes, and the Mission Mountain Food Enterprise Center developed, alongside him, developed a tomato product that suited his exact needs, and they have it frozen and available year-round. I showed you that producer map earlier. That's accessible via the link that's at the bottom of this page, and that is again an image of that map. I mentioned the posters that are available, also available for printing if you have your own printer there. There's a quick list of all of those individual digital materials that are available. And that portal site, I keep it bookmarked on my web browser. I think it's really valuable that each person on your team has that and knows how to access and use it. And please don't share that to the public. As I mentioned earlier, we want to be able to collect as much evaluative information as we can about the impacts of Harvest of the Month so that we can continue to develop the program. So engaging customers, how do we do it? Taste tests have been really effective at many of the institutional sites. If you've got a new product that's showing up on shelves or on the menu, having samples out works really well. It's a great way to highlight. And here's a picture from a school taste test in Ronan. Kids really enjoy this. When they learn about it in the classroom, they get the opportunity to taste it, and then it shows up in the cafeteria. They're much more likely to partake and enjoy. So the evaluation components, change the date on here, complete the beginning of pilot survey by today. Hopefully we can get those in short order, and folks don't end up with stacked reporting to do. This is something that you definitely need to work with your team to complete. The monthly surveys by the 5th of each month, and there are also kitchen and activity tracking sheets if that's helpful for you. Those are not something that I ever ask for, but those are on the portal if you want to download a spreadsheet to help keep track of what's being served or sold. And I do send out a monthly email that's a reminder, talks about any local events that are coming around, and I like to share pictures of what's going on at each site. So if you got photos or stories that you just want to send over to me in an email, I'm super happy to collect those. There's a picture of the meal tracking sheet. So yeah, as I mentioned, sharing your story can be done through the web form. You can send it to me in an email or blast it out on social media. I will always check before pulling a picture down to reshare. So if you share pictures out there, they might turn up in a news article or in a newsletter email. So the most important thing, make a team. Sit down with that team, put the deadlines on your calendar. Some of the most successful pilot sites have actually added this to a monthly meeting, and they plan out, well, okay, what are the activities that we're going to do? How are we going to highlight the harvest this month? When is this going to be ordered, and who is it going to be ordered from? Make time to connect with those vendors ahead of time, checking on availability. This is like a whole nother area of training, but it's all about relationships in terms of sourcing locally, and the ability to develop that conversation over time is really important to establishing good relationships with vendors. Bah, that's all I have to say about that. So I'm excited that all of you all are participating in this, and I am happy to field any questions that are that come up from the presentation.
No, this is Jim. It looks to me like that website's pretty extensive as far as resources that we have to use, so that's pretty awesome.
We want it to be almost overwhelming.
You're getting there.
Not tipping the scale, and that's for a business. It's one thing to provide an educator with tons of resources. They're used to that. I don't know how a food business responds to that kind of a page, so we're happy.
Yeah, that's really the question.
Yeah.
Where we're going to use this stuff. I imagine we'll do some of it internally with our staff, and then do some social media stuff too.
Very cool. So also as a part of this project, we've been conducting community meetings that basically pulls together that team of stakeholders that are invested in working to grow Harvest of the Month in their organizations, and currently in the process of planning for the end of March community meeting in Kalispell, Livingston, and Missoula. So look for email communication about those. It's a good place to share stories and get excited, but also share connections to vendors, purchasing strategies. One of the neat things that we've seen in Livingston is that the Food Resource Center will on occasion buy bulk. They'll process it and then sell it to the hospital and to the school, and so all three of them are getting a Harvest of the Month item from a local producer, and it's already pre-processed and easier for them to integrate into their menus. So that kind of collaboration is really awesome to see, and we hope to foster more of that kind of thing. If there are no other questions, we can wrap it up. I very much appreciate each of your time, and I'm really excited to see what Harvest of the Month can be. I remember one of my colleagues had this vision of a kid coming home from school with a beet recipe in February, and showing it to mom, and then saying, okay, well, we'll go to the grocery store and we'll see if we can make these beet brownies or what have you. Beets and chocolate, really good combination if nobody's tried that. They go to the grocery store, and lo and behold, there are Montana grown beets available there too that are also highlighted with Harvest of the Month. Go visit grandma that evening after dinner at the nursing facility, and they've had roasted beets on their menu as well, and the connection to that seasonally available produce, and education about why fresh is better, and what we can do as individuals to support our local economies, and is really one of the hopeful outcomes of Harvest of the Month. And it's awesome to hear the little stories along the way that is being accomplished. So thank you all for being a part of this, and that's a wrap. I look forward to talking with you individually.